And welcome back, Titans, to episode 55. We have Shital Mars back. I believe you were episode, 36-ish, something like that, about 20 ago.
Something.
You
Yes.
wanted to come back?
Yeah, I forced my way back in. I think I just booked it and then told you I'm coming on the show.
And now here you are. And we have going to be a little bit more conversational this time, I believe, where we're going to be discussing presupposition and mindset and all the things that people think hold them back, but don't actually hold them back. In reality, it's just when you're stuck and you're buried under all these beliefs and these things that you don't even understand or have recognized you're allowing to control your life, are controlling your life. We're talking about that process of raising yourself out of that and how to really become that person that you want to be. So, Sheethal, start us off with some of your thoughts on where you say most people, or even yourself, have traveled through and been along your journey, and I guess some of the experiences and realizations that you had in respect to this topic.
So I grew up in the school of hard knocks, right? I'm second generation Indian. My parents came here in 1980. I'm a woman. I'm a person of color coming in. And then September 11th happened, and that changed the dynamic for someone like me. And I spent a lot of my childhood really pounding into my head and hearing it elsewhere too, but it's a lot in your own head and in my own head of I can't. That there's something deficient about me. There's something I cannot do. There's a skill set I cannot possess. There is a life that is unattainable for me. And I carried that with me for a really long time, even into adulthood, even past college. And no amount of accomplishment changed it. No amount of doing well in school, no amount of getting a job, no amount of personal or financial success changed the fact that I kept telling myself I can't. And I can't is a really powerful statement if you're choosing to use that word. And that phrasing shows up in pretty much everyone's mind, I think, at different points in your life. And I think there was a catalyst when I was in my early 20s. And I was constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was this idea of, okay, I'm doing okay now, but something terrible is going to happen to me. Some bias is going to show up. Something's going to tell me that you absolutely can't, and I will have to work my way around it. And someone told me that I am creating my own failures. I'm creating it in my mind. And I said, no, I'm not, because something always does happen. And people that struggle know this really well. You get really excited, you get a good paycheck, you have a good Friday, and that Saturday you blow out a tire, right? What's the point of getting excited about the paycheck when you know every time you have a good day, the next day someone's sick? The next day your fuse is blown out. Next day something always seems to happen. And so you stop getting excited. You start preparing for the thing that always seems to happen. And I said, it's not me. It just always happens. Something terrible always happens. And I have to be ready for it. And he said, something terrible always happens because you believe something terrible is always going to happen. And you are so anxiously prepared for it that it always is going to happen. You're creating it for yourself. And I thought he was absolutely insane. I'm like, you don't know my life. You don't know how hard it's been. You don't know what I've been through. And it's amazing that I'm even here. This is positivity. This is winning. Me being anxious and upset is winning. And he told me positivity begets positivity. I'll never forget this statement. It was positivity begets positivity. And he said, try it. It was like just like that. Like it was simple. Like you could just wake up in the morning and be positive. And I thought it was the biggest crock of horseshit. I thought it was so stupid. I'm like, yes, I'm going to look in the mirror and tell myself that I'm strong and I'm brave and I'm beautiful and I'm not going to do it. But there was something when I said, okay, I'll try. And I got into work the next day and I'm looking at the computer. I'm completely overwhelmed. I'm like, this is it. This is what gets me fired. I'm not going to finish it. This is the thing I was waiting for. And I took a deep breath and I said, no, I can do this. And it's a big difference. I can. And then there's a step past of I will. Because I can be very quickly go backwards to I can't because you didn't. Oh, I can, but I didn't actually accomplish the thing I wanted to accomplish. So therefore I can't. And I took it a step further. Not only can I do it, I will do it. And that was a big shift for me very early in my career. And it is the catalyst for all of the positive things that has occurred in my life. And I tell the story to everybody that I am a tale of two cities. If you've ever read the book, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I live in a life where there's always something bad, always something good, and they collide together often. But my mindset of because I focus on the good, because I focus on moving past, because I focus on I will and I can, the bad doesn't hurt me nearly as much as it used to. But it's all mindset. It's all here. And even with people who have mental health disabilities, you have diagnosed anxiety, bipolar, depression, all these other things, and you need medicine and therapy and all this other stuff. The focus of all of that is in empowering the I can. The best thing about therapy and getting your mental health in order is so that you can put yourself in the mindset that you need to be in to keep moving forward. So you have people having anxiety, myself included, having had depression a bunch of times in my life. It doesn't preclude you from having an I can, I will mindset. I think for a lot of people, they think it does, but it doesn't. And that's one of those belief systems that you have to overcome. That just because you have a label on your shoulder now that you have a mental health problem doesn't now mean you can't.
And what process did you use in your life to get yourself to that next step after you had that experience? You're sitting at the laptop. You went from the I can't to I can and I will, and you did. Was it just roses after that, or what really emerged from there?
No, and it wasn't roses. I had a car accident. I was broke as a joke. It- lights turned off, showering in other people's places, broke. Like I was calling in broke. Like that was my life back then. And it was one of those things of the hits keep coming. The challenges keep coming. You lose a job. You find some way of making little bits of money here and there. And the change in mindset was almost consistency. And I adopted and this might be a girl thing. I'm talking maybe to the wrong audience. I actually started saying to myself, I'm going to dress for the person I wish to be. So I wake up in the morning and I put the affect on. I put the costume on. I put the smile on. I put the mask on. And it was almost like a suit of armor. And boss of this business looks like this. The person I need to be who can and will do this looks like this. And eventually it was a fake it till you make it type of thing. Like at first it was a costume. At first the suiting was a costume. The makeup was a costume. And eventually it started being me. And I didn't even notice it. It took a year of me actually looking backwards and going, oh, that wasn't so bad. That actually wasn't so bad. And actually figuring out, it took even more time than that the reason it wasn't so bad was mindset. It wasn't luck. I was driving a 1998 Mercedes-Benz station wagon that I got from my boss because my other car was totaled. It wasn't me that totaled it. Like, so now I'm driving this grandma mobile with terrible shocks. I was very bouncy. And It's a crappy car. And I got into an accident in this car. I had no car. Then I got another car. Someone gave it to me. Then I took over their lease. The battery died almost every day. I had to jump this thing every day. So it's not like I was without struggle. It was not like I was without, worrying about how I'm going to make rent or worry about how I'm going to pay for dinner or groceries or how I'm going to take care of my dogs. Like, it was a very stressful year. Money was a big issue for me. And the fact that none of my family talked to me. I had zero support system. I had me, myself, and I. And very luckily, because I did work and I always try to do my best at work. I did have supportive people at my job who would find me ways to get buy one, get one free at the grocery store. Like, they would help me out. And not in a charity way. They never paid for anything for me, but in a way of pointing me in directions where there would be resources or ways I can stretch what resources I have. So it was a rough year. But at the end of that year, I didn't feel down. And I remember all the way through ages 3 to 23, every year felt down. Every birthday. I didn't want to celebrate birthdays. I hate birthdays. Birthdays are the time of year when someone walks up to you and says, I'm not sure I'm happy you're here. That's how I remember it. I'm sure I like the obligation of having to celebrate you today. I didn't celebrate birthdays. My 24th birthday was the first birthday I celebrated. It was a change, and it was an accumulation of that activity of and because I'm doing it, each day got a little bit easier. Each moment got a little bit better. And before you know it, it's not that I was doing, and then I became. It wasn't even a conscious transformation where at each step of the way, I was metamorphosizing into a butterfly, like on purpose. It happened because I made the choice to not always think that the negative is something that I need to have in my life, that I deserved it in some way. And I think that's part of what the question is. Part of the things that hold us back is when those negative things happen, we go, of course it did. This is my life. This is what I deserve in life and what I've earned in life. And therefore, the negativity belongs to me. If you can get to a place where you don't think the negativity belongs to me, it is what it is, then you can actually choose what belongs to you. And I'm a better person. Not that I don't get down. I definitely do. But I think I'm a better person, a more capable person, a stronger person, mentally, physically, because I've chosen to abandon the mantra in my head that I deserve bad things.
The presupposition.
Yeah.
So I present a counter case in some ways, not entirely counter case, but I would say in the inverted case. Or maybe a different archetype or frame of mind. And so in my life, I've felt at times that if you can be numb to negative things that happen, that is almost equally as dangerous as overreaction. Or even just to say reaction in and of itself. So to go to the example where you get the check and then you get a flat tire. Let's say the healthy, positive, successful person. And I would say that we use the word healthy here because those states of mind, when we become so familiar and like it's fish in water, it's unhealthy. And the first thing you have to realize is that it's unhealthy. Because then you start to summon the deeper part of your human psyche that says, I need to have a drive to be better, to be healthy. And I think we accept broadly, this is why that statistics exist and the curves of success versus poverty versus average are the way they are, is that people just accept where they're at and they become numb to things that happen. And then they use that as a defense of them feeling strong, when in reality, they're in as equally a horrible position as the person who overreacts. As if, oh, my my tire popped. Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I'll figure something else out. Whatever. Versus, I would say the healthy frame of mind is understanding that you're going to take care of it. You're going to move forward through it. And then it's just another thing that happened. And I think one thing that's pretty dangerous that I've received or heard, and that this isn't talked about either, is that when we talk about you create your reality and all those things also flip side. Because of people who have negative psychologies, what ends up happening is they start to become the cause and the blame for everything that happens in their life. And then they end up in this perpetual cycle where something will happen in their life that would happen to any single person, just like your tire
Right.
getting flat. And all of a sudden they're like, I'm the cause of it. It's because I'm a bad person and I shouldn't have done that thing. When in freaking reality, it's just anybody and every other person. In fact, sometimes you ever see this? You drive down the highway, new cars that are on the side of the road. And it's what happened to your car?
Yeah.
But realize like that person has a great new car, but they ended up on the side of the road for some reason. So just because you get a new car doesn't mean that you're never going to have problems. Just because you get it, and I guess vehicle is an appropriate and broadly applicable term here. Just because you get a different thing, it doesn't mean that everything goes away. It's really about your attitude towards it, and it starts at that lower level is the presuppositions, the unconscious beliefs and the patterns and the behaviors that inform and influence the way that you receive life. On that note, because I'm definitely one of those numb people. Like
Yeah.
I've gone through a lot as well. In fact, one of my first YouTube videos was about how, and this was interestingly enough, it was a really great time looking back to it from my development of my psychology. And it's probably similar to how that year was for you. So when I came back from college, I went and lived with my parents for 3 to 6 months, something like that. And they're like, all right, you got to go. So I'm like, okay. So I go. Luckily, I got a nice friend's house to stay at, everything like that. But I didn't have a car at this time. And my parents are not wealthy. So coming from very little and probably very little just in mind more than anything.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a vehicle. But I got a bike. And I ended up biking every single place I needed to go. And in fact, I got 3 jobs. I was biking easily 12 to 15 miles a day. And even in the middle of the winter,
Jobs.
yeah,
Yeah.
even in the middle in
Yep.
Minnesota, it was about 2018-ish, I believe. Terrible winter, but I biked every single flipping day. Whether it was a foot of snow, luckily it was a nice mountain bike that a friend had. Whether it was a foot of snow, whether it was -40, it was very cold that year many times. It was like, look, I can't not go. I have to go to work. I have to be able to pay for this place to stay, my own food, my own things. And you talk about it wasn't luck, it was mindset. I recall that this is probably a little bit lucky. I went that whole winter, and it was about February, and so it was getting slushy. It was terrible. There was practically a blizzard going on, and there were almost no cars on the road. But I was biking, charging through, going to the place I needed to go to work. And I remember just embracing it so heavily. So that's the other thing I'm going to talk about. I embraced it so heavily that I just was charged as could be and excited. I was like, this is freaking great. And I'm just biking and I'm literally going faster than the cars next to me because they're all like, they can't handle the snow. And I'm just trudging through on my bike. And I remember that I just felt so great that the ride went by as quick as could be. It was like 7-8 miles to the first job. And I got there, and then a friend called me, and this is out of the blue. I haven't talked to him in 6 months, but a really good lifetime friend. And he goes, "Hey, do you need a car?" And I was like, "Dude, yes." And I ended up getting a car it was a Volvo. I actually got it for -$100. It's a crazy story. Yes. So we can get into that part of the story, but the big experience here was that as soon as I just immersed exactly what I was experiencing so heavily and so fully, the right thing came about. That it was like life and God said, that's enough. Here's a car. Just get to where you need to go. I'm sorry.
Shocking how true that is. I'm going to go on a little tangent if you'll let me. And I discovered this as I got older. They tell people, there was a scientific study that people that have a negative mindset, negative mentality, are immersed in depression and whatever, that their natural scent is actually off-putting to others. You don't smell it. It's not like rancid. It's not like you smell bad, but it actually changes your pheromones. So if you think of a lot of people who have negative thought processes, even angry ones, like it's not even, oh, woe is me, or it's, I hate the world, or the world hates me. It's very outward projecting. It changes how people are attracted to you. And I didn't realize that. I didn't think about that. I'm like, I was literally repelling people with how depressed I would be, or how anxious I would be, or how negative I would be. That when I found myself being more positive, again, it just the accumulation of effort over time, being more positive, all of a sudden I started attracting positive people. And again, you might be the wrong audience, but I stopped attracting losers. So then I stopped dating idiots. I stopped attracting the wrong type of person. And I've been in violent relationships. I've been in very not so great relationships. And then when I started being positive, that's when I met my husband. All of a sudden, I was like, I'm done dating. Everybody's awful. And I'm like, I just want to be me, and this is it. And I'll be a crazy dog lady and have a farm, and this will be my life. And I met my husband like within a week of that.
Mm.
It was once you start accepting and start being positive, somehow and I believe very much in energies, and we talk about belief systems and worldviews, but I believe very much that the energy I was putting out, the pheromones I was putting out, all started attracting positive people to me and positive things to me. And I don't mean stuff. Like it wasn't about, I now have Gucci in my life. I didn't have any of that. But I had positive circumstances more often than not. When something weird would happen, all of a sudden there's the phone call going, hey, you need $20? Like, I wasn't even going to call you for $20. Yes, I would like to have a sandwich. I absolutely want the $20. And I've paid back every dime. I literally paid back a dime before. I've paid back every dollar I've ever borrowed in my life. But all of those things didn't happen to me as a kid. When things got rough and down, nobody was there because you're not attracting it to you. And then later on, as I became more positive, and in that story, you embraced it. You embraced this life. It wasn't the thing is, woe is me, how horrible it is, how awful it is to be biking in the snow. You find out, this is great. I'm making great time. I'm moving. They're not. And you have a mentality. All of a sudden, now you get that phone call. And it's luck. But something about having positive mindset and jettisoning the woe is me. And I think some of it is this belief system, I should have a car. And because you believe you should have a car, you can't accept that you don't. And you live in that difference of expectation versus reality. And it's like, that's the thief of happiness, right?
Right.
You live in it, and then you're never open enough for the car to come into your life. So it is luck that the phone call happened the way it is. But if you work positive, I believe the call doesn't come. Because they don't want to talk to the sad guy that's going to complain about his bike trip.
Right. Should have is, now that you identify that, it's connected to so many bad things in people's lives. Not helpful states, harmful states of mind. Should
And I
have,
think that's
should be, why not? Why did this happen? All those kind of, but should.
it's universal.
Dangerous.
It's dangerous and it's universal. There are no better humans out there that don't feel should. Like they don't conceptualize should, and they're just living these la-di-da rainbow covered lives. Everybody sees a should. And I actually think part of it goes back to the 80s for me, which is lifestyles of the rich and famous. This perception that if you are American and any kind of moderate means, that you should have the lifestyle of the rich and famous. So you look at the lifestyle that you want to have. Look at the life you actually should have and believe you should have that, but don't. and you're immediately upset. You're immediately upset. And you look at that life and you start having schadenfreude. You start getting excited when bad things happen to rich people. You start comparing yourself to everyone else. And every moment of your life is a comparison to an outside world that also doesn't exist. Social media has put that on steroids. Times a billion is this idea that what we see in social media of TikTok and Instagram and wherever you're consuming media, and this people are on jets and people look skinny and people have these great jobs and everybody seems to be succeeding over and over again. That the algorithm is feeding you a should. And by the way, even those people who live those quote unquote lives, we're seeing 18 seconds of their actual life, of their life. But if it's not AI, it's not even real. But we're seeing 18 seconds of a person's life and thinking that extrapolates to the full 24 hours. It doesn't. And we're constantly inundated with, you should want this. You should have this. You should buy this. And if you have all these things and look like this and are like this, then everything will be great. When really it has nothing to do with having it all. It has nothing to do with being like that person at all. It has everything to do with accepting exactly where you are and being absolutely okay with, if you never get on a jet a day in your life, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think society is telling you that if you're not shooting to be CEO, if you're not shooting to be a model, if you're not shooting to make $1 billion exit, then you are deficient in some way. And so it's hard not to feel, not to develop this presupposition that everyone has this great life but you, which it just isn't true. Most people don't have a great life, even the ones on jets.
What's that quote from the Bible? The path is narrow, the path to salvation, or it's the path to, what is it?
I wish I knew. I am not up to date on my Bible verses.
Basically, the path, I'll fill in some words. The path of a good life is narrow.
Yes.
There's a drastic reduction, but yes, so we'll use that. The path to a good life is narrow. And there are so many things that we can do. And part of it, the desire to do it or the doing of it, comes from, in many senses, conformity, modeling, wanting to understand kind of these deep psychological drives that are there that have helped us with survival. So I need to know what's going on, or else I'm going to miss out, or all these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
The path to a really good life is narrow. So if with that, take that to extrapolate it too, is when you really look at your life, you should be thinking about a very small set of things. And in fact, one quote that came up here, or a frame of mind that emerged is, rather than looking at should, shouldn't, could, wish is maybe fine. Looking at your life as was, is, and will be.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing more. Nothing less.
Yep.
What is, will be. So if you do want something, you are working towards a goal, it can be that great lifestyle. Look at it as without attachment, was, is, or will. Because the was, a lot of people, like you said, I actually think you said this not on the show, but just prior, was that it's easy if something bad happened in your past for you to hold on to that experience in your mind and then continuously look at everything that happens as a result of that. I didn't say that thing because, you know what, I'm just weak. I'm not confident. I'm not emotional because this and that happened in my life, and now you're living and you're just constantly there. Versus that was, here's what it is. What it is, I had the thought to say this thing to a person. Next time, I'm going to remember to say that. Or in fact, let me call them and tell them right now. How much of people's pain would be removed just from that? It's like we think that we need to say the perfect thing at the right time to the right person, or else it doesn't work right. And life's not like that. And further is fully accepting completely where you are at. Because to do so means, here's the key, is identifying exactly what will be. for you. And even if you don't go and exactly create that thing right away, from the standpoint of, or from the frame of mind that working towards that is much better than 99% of other things that you could think about. I should have that. I shouldn't have that. All those kind of traps. That comes down to what I said as well before the show is scruffing yourself up to that higher order of thinking, and the executive function in your brain. If you are mired and you're lost in the circumstances of your life or in things that are distracting you or keeping you weak or less than your potential and you're capable of, chances are you're not even reaching for a consistent enough period that level of higher order executive thinking that makes cleaning up your room super easy. Think about that. That's what depression is. That's what all these states of mind are, where you see the pile of clothes and you're like, my life sucks. I can't believe it. More dirty clothes. Is it ever going to end?
And it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, I started doing dishes and laundry and never stopped. It's forever. And I'll give you the alternative of how people go, oh, like this, even the noises, like, oh, like this, the why me? Why do I have laundry? Why do I have dishes? When will the work never end? And it never ends. And when I look at this, and I'm open about the fact that I got diagnosed with ADHD about a year ago. And that explains my whole life. Oh, now this makes sense. But it takes me about 4 to 6 weeks to put away laundry. Is that last step that I just cannot do. And some people can go, what's deficient about me? How horrible is my life? Oh, the work never ends. The drudgery of it is just, it's a weight that you carry on your shoulders when you approach even the most basic of tasks. And I look at it, and now it's funny that I'm like that. I don't deserve hard work. Hard work just is. Like, the dishes are dirty. I have to clean them. It's not a punishment that I have to spend my Saturday washing dishes. It's not a punishment that I have to mop my floor. It's not a punishment that I have to do laundry. It's these things that we don't enjoy doing are not punishments. They're part of life. Everybody has to do them. But if you get very woe is me about the fact that you have to do these things, everybody has to do these things. And getting stuck in that mindset of, I shouldn't have to. It still goes back to should. I shouldn't have to do dishes. I should be out having brunch and mimosas. And there's nothing preventing you from doing it. If you believe dishes are what's preventing you from going out and having brunch and mimosas, and I know a lot of women who think, I don't have time. I have kids, I have work, I have domesticity to manage. There is zero time to go and enjoy my life. And you look at the world and they all seem to be having a great time, and you see all these photos and you go, more laundry. Whereas laundry just is. And that's mindset.
Mm.
I was going to tell you, I wanted to go back to something you said, because was, is, will be. And I think some of the things that I think are the most impactful about belief systems and presuppositions start with was. And the past and the baggage you're lugging forward over and over again. And you and I have talked about this, having rougher times in our youth. My brother said something to me when I was going to college, because I was in a very deep cycle of self-sabotage. I would do really well. I would get elected to be president of some club and then fall off a cliff. Like, I would constantly do something great and then do something terrible right. And my brother said something to me, and he said, when are you going to stop hurting yourself to prove a point? And I didn't understand what he meant. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not hurting? He said, no one's going to understand that they hurt you. You hurting yourself doesn't now all of a sudden create the realization that the people of your past have harmed you. They look at you like you're still harming them. The accountability is not there. So you keep doing this to show your pain and expose the pain and try to blame your suffering and your failures on someone else. So see, they did this to me. They're never going to get it. So instead of doing this as some kind of cosmic punishment to yourself and to those around you, you could just live your life. And whether they will ever say sorry or not is irrelevant. And I know a lot of people who carry that. I can't be happy. I can't move forward because
Yeah.
that would be letting them off the hook. And you're not letting them off the hook. You can't control. I think I said this to you once. I don't believe necessarily in the concept of accountability the way most people do. Like you can hold someone else accountable. You're holding yourself accountable. And I can't control how my actions towards another person, how they interpret that. I can cut someone out in my life and say, you've harmed me, I'm cutting you out. I don't want to expose myself to that pain anymore. I'm not holding them accountable. They think I'm an asshole. They think I'm terrible. They have no feeling of, oh, I must have hurt her, therefore I'm being cut off. Maybe I should change my ways. How often does that actually happen? It doesn't. Very rarely. I'll say very rarely it happens. Most of the time they go, oh, I hurt you. Now you're hurting me back. You're the problem. They look at you when you actually, set boundaries and say, I'm no longer going to tolerate this behavior from you to me. And that was a big shift in mindset. I can't manifest in people outside. I can't go back to the past and tell all of these people off. And all of a sudden they're all going to give me flowers and hugs. So sorry I did this to you. They're not. And me constantly chasing the I'm sorry prevented me from being okay. Like I'm taking myself off that. I no longer need your validation. I no longer need your sorry. And forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going to tolerate behavior from you. It just means that your past behavior to me is no longer holding me hostage.
Another flip side of that is you can't live on I'm sorry either.
Right.
A lot of people live on I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I did that. And it's like, great, it's over. Move the F on, buddy.
Right.
You said it. Understand. You did what you could with that. Now it's time to go make a difference.
You can't live for other people either. So whether it's an I'm sorry you're searching for or validation, right? The good job, the good boy, the you did good. That you can look backwards to the people that were your support structure and you're chasing that validation. Especially in my community, we are taught to live for our parents. We are taught to live for the validation of our community. We're collectivists, right? You do more for others in your community than you should do for yourself. The self is a very distant 100 in the list of priorities that you should have. And as much as I think Americans can go too far into individualistic of don't care about anyone outside of yourself, that could be the worst extreme. I do believe that self is important. And if I do good for myself, that yields me doing good for others. And I know a lot of people that when they come from the I was or the what was, they hold themselves back. They go into careers, they marry certain people, they follow a life path that was prescribed for them because they feel they have to live for the validation of their families or their communities, and they will never fully be themselves. And part of getting rid of presuppositions, part of living in being positive is you have to be authentic and you have to know who you are. And no, as long as you're not harming anybody, I would say being who you are is okay. Even if it's weird, even if, okay, for me, it was always, you have to be a doctor. 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 And if I had stepped foot, and that was the thing that my brother, when I was going to college, I was gonna go biology and microbiology, organic chemistry, and do the whole doctor thing. That life wasn't meant for me. And having him tell me that started that first step of, okay, I'm going to do me. And that meant a different career path. And that meant disappointing people. And that meant being paid with disappointing people. A lot of people struggle with what they perceive as disappointment or letting others down or what their expectations of you are. And you carry that into what is. And because you're constantly contorting yourself to fit into a mold, you don't have energy to actually thrive.
You said something there. Good for myself equals good for others. That's a very fundamental concept of a prosperous and healthy and happy person. It's the biggest companies in the world. This is very well known. Let's look at pharma, for example, and let's throw aside what negative people have to say about pharmaceutical industry. Look at pharmaceutical industry and how many people it's served, how many lives it's saved, and then look at their profit margins. And then look at how those profit margins are more or less, most of the times, reinvested into creating different products, different drugs, different treatments. They have to have profit margins that are insanely high. Some people would always argue it doesn't need to be so high, but I think that it does. I think that if you look at any big company that's successful, Google, for example, all the services that you can get for $12 a month normally would cost you $1,000. Imagine all the things you can do on Google now that used to be $50 here, $30 there, and now it's just all in one thing for $12. And in in business, I truly believe that is true. And in other cases, if you want to deliver really good results for people, that takes money too, and you have to invest. And if you really want to be as effective as you can be, that likely requires having other people that are working for you, which means that your prices are higher, which means that ultimately, though, it's not you're taking from your customer. That customer is actually getting a much better product, a much better service, a much better experience. So good for yourself equals good for others. I would agree that's a business grounded thing. And look at anybody you know who's not good for themselves or to themselves. How good are they for you?
They can't be. And again, it goes back to that negativity when you're hurting yourself. And I'll raise that hand. I did a lot of that. When you're hurting yourself, you cannot be for others. And then you also become a drain on other people. So they will slowly extricate you from your life, from their life. So you want to be a reliable person. You want to be someone that someone can come to in a time of need. But they're not coming to you. They can't come to you because you can't do for you. How are you going to do for them? And that can start a vicious circle in your mind of now I'm going to beat myself up. Now I'm going to beat myself. The self-flagellation that people do. And I go people, I'm in the people group. The self-flagellation that we do of beating ourselves up. No amount of beating myself up makes me a better person. The fact that I have my mental whiplash, my mental scars, doesn't now, someone isn't coming up to me going, you must be a good person because you think you're awful. No one has ever said that. But when you think you're a good person and you do the things that are positive and good in this world, then you are a good person. One of the things that I struggle with sometimes when I meet people is I feel sometimes people care more about how they're perceived than how they actually are. I want to be perceived as generous, but I don't actually want to be generous of spirit. I want to give the check. I want to be the guy that walks around with the check. And there's a difference of intent and mentality. I want to be the guy that walks around with a check because I can, and I love people, and I want to better other people's circumstances. That is generosity of spirit. But then there are people with a check going, I want the congratulations. I want the good job. I want the attaboy. I want the you must be such a nice guy, without actually hearing about who you've given money to. Like perception, and people spend so much effort on being perceived as affable, as being perceived as likable, as being perceived as strong or brave or fortunate, instead of doing the work of actually being any of those things.
So to go back to one of the other things you said there, and you mentioned it actually just in that line. So hurting yourself to prove a point. One thing that I thought about myself for a while, and perhaps even in some ways still believe, is that by having a harder story, I would be a better example for people and I would show them that they're capable of more. And in reality, at some point, that just becomes okay, actually go and do something super great. So you are the example at this point. You don't just show people over and over again that they can overcome hard times because they can. And that's great that you prove that. Everybody loves the Rocky story.
Right.
We all love that. It's there's a reason why it penetrated into the consciousness, not only in the United States, but globally, because people resonate with someone who was a failure and they overcame it. Because everyone feels or has felt like that at some point in their life. And they stretched it out to make 5, 6, 7 movies. So I think there was many ups and downs in there.
Yeah.
So Rocky's not the perfect example of somebody that goes on and really just achieves consistency in their life. Yet there are a million examples like that where somebody has gone. Paul Diorio, you ever hear this story?
No.
I believe I'm saying his name right. He was homeless. He lived in a car with his son, and then he
Didn't they make the
started
movie
sell.
from his life?
Probably.
Yeah.
He's worth billions. He started Patron Tequila. He was Paul Mitchell Systems, the whole hair and beauty
Oh,
kits.
different person. Yeah.
Maybe the same guy though. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe a different person than you're thinking about. So he did go from being homeless to having all this great success, and he's still wealthy and successful. Patron is still a great brand. It's just that I resonate with what you're saying there, with hurting yourself to prove a point, that you're showing yourself or others that you are strong, that you're not going to be stopped. Yet at some point, it just becomes this: you're downing yourself, you're holding yourself lower than you're capable of, and it's time to really level up. So that's one thing I took from that you mentioned. And this is a key factor because we talk about, I think we can kind of shift context or gears a little bit here and say, let's say you are somebody who's in a rough position and you want to free yourself, you want to analyze your presuppositions, you want to become aware of what they are, you want to chart a course forward and start living a much better life. The terms the sentence that comes up over here is, if we look at the way that social media, advertisements, anything you see really that's trying to get you to buy something or have a reaction, movies, music, it's there to get you a reaction, to get your reaction so that it can garner more attention, not so that it can serve you and who you are and who you want to be. And so if we look at the person who is controlled or is mired in these fears and doubts and disbelief and bad patterns and things that are holding them down, they lack the ability, or they have lost touch with the ability to say simply enough. I don't believe anyone truly lacks the ability. Of course, you can degrade your brain and whatnot, but that's, I think, far case example. 99.9% of people aren't in that place. It's if your response is constantly being controlled, that will enforce those patterns that are in place. And until you start to make your bed, wake up early, controlling, you set the alarm clock, not shoot, it's 9 a.m. and I have to be at work by 10 or things like that. You have to take control of your life and the way and enforce the patterns of what you want to respond to and what that person who you want to be responds to, put themselves in the right frame of mind, the right state of action and focus and poise moving forward. So controlling your own response tendencies is right connected with that higher order executive function. That if you are depressed, you're anxious, you're feeling negative, you're somewhere where you are functionally disconnected from that portion of your brain for a high enough period of time, to the point where you constantly feel disempowered. And so I think that's a good psychological foundation from begin. From your perspective, what else would be the pattern or the way that if somebody's listening to this and they're in that and they want to start really changing their lives, what can they do?
I'm going to say something that's pretty flippant, actually, and then I'll try to explain it further. I would eliminate fair from your vocabulary. We spend an inordinate amount of time being frustrated over the concept of fairness. Traffic. That person is speeding and not getting pulled over, but I speed and I get pulled over. That person got a promotion that I deserved or felt I earned. That's not fair. dwelling on this concept of fairness, we spend an inordinate amount of mental time focusing on fairness, trying to will fairness into the world. And yes, each of us individually can do things that are less fair and more fair. But I would eliminate that from your vocabulary as soon as you can stop dwelling on what fair is and go, okay, I'm going to go get for me. And that may not be fair. Like I have had successes. Do I deserve it? Is that fair? Are there other more deserving people? There's lots of people struggling in the world. Is it fair that I'm able to sit here and talk to you on a Saturday? I must have this great life. I can do this. That's not fair. How many people work harder than me? I know millions of people who work harder than me. It's not fair. And I was one of those people working 3 jobs and being broke. That's not fair. It's not fair. How many minutes do we lose focusing on the fairness? And if you can let that go and start thinking about, okay, what can I control? What can I not control? How much brain space do I have? And my husband calls it, he says, I just try to live the la-di-da Shital life. This is a very far cry from the person I was in my 20s, right? If someone knew me young and had to describe where they thought I would be here at almost 40, they would not go la-di-da Shital life. But my husband says it like this, that I can't control traffic. I can't control who doesn't like me today. I can't control whether the washing machine decides to go on the front. There's so much I can't control that I don't allow my mind to dwell on it. I can only control what I'm doing. And so by not dedicating mental space to that and being sad about my circumstances, of being frustrated, and frustration is the word that I think we spend way too much time being frustrated, allowing ourselves to dwell in frustration instead of working our way out of it and going to critical thinking skills and trying to find our way around a circumstance. That if I was going to help somebody who's struggling, and I heard this a lot from communities of color, I'm Black, I can't go forward. I'm Latin, I can't go forward. I'm a woman, I can't go forward. The biases that are built into systems, I can't. And I'm very much empathetic to it. I experience them. I experience the sexism. I experience the racism. But you cannot control that. And what I have done is, instead of being frustrated that by a racist moment, I'm trying to turn that into action of, this person's not my person. I don't have to interact with them. I can move around them. And I'm not going to let someone who, let's say, is stealing my work product, taking credit for it. I'm not going to now do a horrible job because this person's pretending that they're as good as me. I'm going to keep doing my job. And what can I control? Can I control going to my supervisor and offering more help? Can I control, and that, let's say the supervisor is a problem, can I go above that person? Can I be good to my teammates if I can't go above that person? And there's those structures, right? Like, you're working a 9-to-5 job. Maybe you're in an office, maybe you're in a factory, maybe you're Uber, maybe you're whatever. There's nobody to go up or around. There's no promotions to get, but I can control how many drives I do. I can control how many packages I ship. I can control how many groceries I bag. I can control those things. And if someone recognizes me, great. If someone doesn't recognize me, great. And I'll give you an example of where this actually worked out. And most people will say it doesn't, and the structures prevent it. And I would say I'm living proof that doing a good job does get recognition over time. But I'm also not so naive that doing a good job is all you have to do. I'm going to stipulate it's not a magic pill. But we talked about this before in team assignments. I do the best I can do regardless of what anybody else does. But when I'm positive about the work I do, I'm proud of the work I do. And this is very apropos for this moment today. For the first time in my life, I am exceedingly proud of the work I do. I really love the work product that I produce, whether I get thank yous or not. I'm proud of the skill. I'm proud of the hard work. I'm like, sometimes I build something. I'm like, this is freaking cool. I don't care that anybody likes it. I don't care if anybody's giving me kudos. But because I'm so positive about it, this is also the most compliments I have ever gotten in my life. I'm attracting the most positive reinforcement in my life, which is turning into money. So let's talk dollars and cents. Let's talk, I'm struggling. I can't make rent. I got kids to feed. She thought all well and good. You think positive, but that doesn't turn into money. It turns into money because I like what I do. I'm positive about it. Someone's, why she's so happy about it. Now I want to be that. I want that work product for me. And she gives me even better work product when I am happy about, when I give her the kudos and she gives me even more.
Mm.
I am actually at the point in my life where I have to turn away work. I never thought that would be a thing. I'm at the point where I have to tell people I actually don't have capacity to bring you on. And that is largely attributable to loving what I do and controlling only me and what I do. I didn't ask for a thank you. I didn't ask for a raise. I didn't walk into any offices and ask for recognition. But because people can tell that I love my work, they want to be part of it and they want to strengthen that work because it brings it out of people. Even the most assholes of people, it brings that out of them. So if you are in this place of you're struggling and you don't know how to move forward and you don't think that a change of mindset matters, it just doesn't matter. The world doesn't work that way. You can control you. You can be proud of the work you do. You can be proud of being a great husband or wife. You can be proud of taking care of your kids. You can go to the park and in a way be like, oh, I'm neglecting my duties at work and I didn't do the laundry and I took my kids to the park and they're having a whole meltdown. Girl, you did it. Or boy, you did it. You got out there, your kids are playing, you made them, they're happy, they're safe, be proud of it. And that's putting that smile on your face and being proud of something good that you've contributed to life, all of a sudden starts attracting more positivity. You start getting deadlines extended. You start getting more leeway when you need it. You start getting money. And that prosperity that you crave so much starts with loving you. It sounds so stupid, but it starts with loving you and what you do and controlling you. And I think you said that word. It's controlling yourself.
Mhm.
And when you feel yourself being frustrated and people think, oh, I live the la-di-da Shital life. Shital doesn't get upset. Shital doesn't cry. I'm talking in the third person. I must have such a great life. There's nothing to be upset about. There's still lots of things. My last 3 weeks of my life have been really hard. Lots of people got sick. People in the hospital, like extraordinarily stressful. There are lots of things that make me frustrated. Stubbing your toe is the worst. There are lots of things that can be frustrating. It doesn't mean you don't have emotions. You're not upset or angry or frustrated or despondent even. But that control to recognize no amount of me crying over this, no amount of me yelling about this, no amount of me being frustrated over this, change the circumstance. And if I want to change the circumstance, I can't be sitting here just being mad. Plus, being mad is very exhausting. I don't know if you've ever felt that. Being sad and mad and frustrated and anxious is a very exhausting emotion, sapping the energy and the will to improve your life by allowing your body to use what its limited energy on this emotion for an extended period of time, like into days, into weeks, into months. At some point, if you stop, happiness is actually a very cheap emotion. It's not mentally taxing. It actually is energy producing. So mindset of controlling that I'm being frustrated about this a little too much. Let me control the situation. I don't like that I have to do dishes. Guess, you know what somebody told me? Like being anxious about homework. You're anxious. Oh, I got a test. I got a paper. and you're anxious. They said the best way to relieve that anxiety over the test is to study. Is to just do the homework. And then
Right.
that's the same thing I would say to someone who really is struggling is yes, I get the structures and I get the frustration and I get how silly all this sounds, but you can control that and come out of the frustration. And there's lots of things, even in a hard life, to be proud of.
One point on positivity and happiness bringing more money. In sales conversations, this is 100% true. And there's a principle that I learned many years ago and haven't been perfect with, but now I'm becoming more aware of it, is haven't been perfect with it since. I used to be phenomenal at it. And that is you should never disagree with your prospect. You should
Mm.
all I've started to see one of my clients that I work with, he does this incredibly well to the point where he just is always smiling, always laughing, always happy. And someone can disagree with him and he'll be like, "Yeah, I think you have a point there. You're very right." Or "I agree," or this and that. And Bill Lau, who was on the podcast, I told you about him before we started. He said that in entrepreneurship, when you're running a company, people buy from others who make them feel smart. So if you're selling to a business, your product, your offer should make them feel smart. That, oh my God, I can invest this much money and I can get this much return, or I can have this better result, or I can save this much money. Makes people feel smart. And sometimes the best way to get there is not always being right. It's not always being correct. It's not always having them know the facts of your product and what it does. Sometimes it's about demonstrating those things, showing and helping them to connect what you're bringing to them with something that'll make them feel really great, will make them feel amazing. And so definitely works in that case as well.
Customer service, too. If you've
Mm.
ever worked a customer service job and you're the person that everybody yells at, right? You're the one, they got a problem and they need you to solve it and they're upset. I taught, and I don't think this is my concept, but this is what I used to teach my clients, especially the customer service team. The second you answer the phone, you put a smile on your face. There's a smile voice. There's a big difference between hi, hi. I want to yell at the hi guy. Like, I do. I have no sympathy for this person. They're giving me energy that I'm going to just bring right back to them. But I used to call it my 16-year-old kid girl voice. Nobody wants to yell at her. She's
Mhm.
doing her job. And I'm smiling and I'm helpful. And I go, I really want to help you. And you say, never disagree with your prospect. But empathizing, going, yeah, that's frustrating. And when you have to say no, look, there really isn't anything. I actually can't help you here. There's nothing I can do. In customer service, there are those limitations, right? You got to escalate it to the next place. And now they're ready to yell at you again. They're a lot less likely to yell at you when they feel like you empathize with their problem. And they're a lot less likely to yell at you when you recognize that you would be frustrated too. And so it's almost that golden rule: treat people the way you wish to be treated. And on the sales side, going back to your point, you don't want to buy from someone who doesn't look happy selling to you.
Mhm.
They're not even like happy about their job. Why do I want to give this company money and the person sitting in front of me looks like death warmed over? And I've met those guys. I've met, those salespeople. Like, they're not happy there. Why do I need to buy this product? But where even you don't have to be falsely exuberant and overly enthusiastic or even resort to flattery or anything else. But the best sales relationships are personable, is people being happy with other people. And then all of a sudden you go, this guy must like where he works, must like the product he sells. I might like it too. And you're all, it's making them feel smart, but also in an environment and an energy in the sales cycle where they feel good too. It's a very light, sales can feel very persuasive and heavy, but if you can find a way to bring levity to it and that lightness of spirit to it, it doesn't feel heavy at all, even for the person that has to cut the check.
So last question here. What is one question that whoever listened to this should be asking themselves as they are now going back into their life, having gained all this information and insight?
Oh, that's complicated. What's the one question that they should ask themselves? I'm going to try to phrase this, but it's, who do I want to be? You don't even have to worry about who you were or who you are. Who do I want to be? And you brought it up earlier today when you were talking about that story of someone going to the conference center, and I want to be the kind of person that does X. And I will take it a step further. During COVID, I wrote a lot of children's stories for my son. I should publish them one day, and maybe one day I will. But I wanted to be part of his. Now that I was home and not working in corporate as much, I wanted to be deeper involved in his life and his upbringing. And I wrote a story called "I Want to Be Like That." And when we think of who we want to be, we often think of technical factors. I want to be a doctor. I want to be wealthy. I want to be a homeowner. We think of it in things of have instead of be. And what I do with my son when I say, what do you want to be when you grow up? We start talking about character traits. I want to be compassionate. I want to be thorough. I want to be persistent. I want to be all of these things. And though the kind of person you want to be, what do you need to do to have those things? If you feel like, okay, I want to be persistent, why aren't you persistent? What do you need to change about being persistent and yet being mindful in the moment of, is this a persistence requiring moment? So think about yourself in terms of character, in mental and spiritual and emotional attributes, less in things of career or aptitude. I want to be in finance. Like, I want to be intellectually curious is better than I want to be smart. That's how I want to be open-minded. I want to be that kind of person. And when you start thinking about that in terms of character traits, and then you do that self-assessment of, am I any of these things? Am I kind? Am I generous? Am I any of those things? And you start saying yes, no, here, there. And I'm that way too. No, I'm not being brave. I'm not being bold. I'm not being persistent in the way, dedicated and devoted in the way I want to be. I want to be considered as reliability was a big thing for me. I went through major cycles of unreliability. I want to be reliable. And so I had to face that fact of, oh crap, I'm not reliable. I wouldn't call me. I'm not going to answer the phone. I'm not reliable, but I want to be. So when those moments of, I want to flake so hard, I want to flake so hard. This is one of those, I want to be reliable, so I choose not to, even at personal cost of discomfort. Because being the thing you want to be requires jettisoning parts of you that you are to be that better thing. And it is uncomfortable. Transformation is uncomfortable. It's painful. It's exhausting. It's work. There's no thing as rainbows and sunshine. Like all of a sudden you just are. You're just great and you're happy. Getting there is work. So I would say, who do you want to be?
Excellent. Shital Mars, thanks for being on the show again. And for everybody who listened, treat this partially as a guide with some tips, some principles, and some things that you can use. But it was an open conversation, which has hopefully, along the time that you've been listening to this, started to allow some of those thoughts that you have or the presuppositions that you hold within to emerge, and you can analyze how two people go through analyzing them, understanding them, and making principles and things that they can use in their life and sharing that with you so that you could do that same process live right in the show. So Shital, thanks again for being on the show. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this episode of Titans Up today. What did you learn from it? Make sure to drop a comment below with your most valuable insight so that other people can engage in the conversation around what this speaker brought to the table. And then on another front, make sure to subscribe so that every time we drop a new episode, you will be notified. And that way you can keep fueling your dreams and your brain with fresh insights which can help you along your journey and along your path to your goals. So thank you so much again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next interview.